Welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you.
This may sound harsh, but are you in the process of blowing your campaign for president?
I don't think so. I just got great polls from NBC nationwide. I think that we're doing very well. Don't forget, you have been thinking about that or asking me that question numerous times over the last, since June 16th. I've had the statement made many a times. He just blew his campaign only to end up having higher poll numbers.
You'd like to talk about polls? Let's talk about some. In a Wisconsin poll a month ago, you were leading Cruz by 10 points. In the same poll, the Marquette poll out this week, you're now trailing Cruz by 10 points. In the latest Fox poll, 67% of women nationally now have an unfavorable view of you. If you had purposely set out to turn off voters, especially women voters, over the last 2 weeks, I'm not sure you could have done a better job.
Well, you know, all I can do is do what I do. I'm self-funding my campaign. I'm not one of these politicians that's being controlled by the people that give them money, believe me, and they are totally controlled. I think I'm doing very well. Was this my best week? I guess not. I could have done without the retweet, et cetera, et cetera. But I think I'm doing okay.
I want to talk to you about that. First of all, Wisconsin. How important is Wisconsin? How big a setback if you don't win there?
Well, I'd like to win it. Is it a big setback? I would like to win it.
Do you think it would jeopardize your ability to get to 1237?
It would always be better to win. I think I get there anyway, but I like Wisconsin. I like the people of Wisconsin. I think they like me. I've had tremendous crowds. We've had a tremendous response, and I think I'm going to do very well in Wisconsin.
You say you've had better weeks. Let's talk about your comments this week about what you would like to see if abortions became illegal. Here you are.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no? Is it?
You had 2 written statements to clean that up.
Well, it took me really 2 statements because they were sort of different statements, and they were on different subjects.
The president of National Right to Life tweeted this: "The inept thing Donald Trump said about women who have abortions is making pro-lifers cringe." You did something pretty remarkable. You offended both the pro-life and the pro-choice movement with 1 statement.
Well, look, it was asked as a hypothetical and talked about if it's illegal, and it was hypothetically asked. And
but you gave
there
that
would
answer.
have been a very strong very conservative group would have said that was the appropriate answer. I'm not saying it was the appropriate answer. I say it's the doctor's fault, or whoever performs the act it's their fault. But there was a time when that would have been, and maybe today that would have been, but that was asked as a hypothetical question, Chris.
But why did you say the woman?
Because it was asked hypothetically. I said the woman because it was asked hypothetically. I also corrected it, and I made it very much so that I think it's acceptable now to everybody. But that was.
Do you agree it was a mistake?
Well, as a hypothetical question, I would have rather answered it in a different manner. Yeah, I would have rather answered it in a different manner.
The growing knock on you, and you read everything, so you know this is what people are saying, is that you haven't thought these things through. You haven't studied, that you wing it too often. Do you think that's fair?
Well, let me just tell you. I've been a really successful businessman for a long time. I was never asked many questions. Like I was asked a question about NATO the other day by Wolf Blitzer. I think I gave a great answer. I said it's obsolete. We spend too much money. We're not getting the benefits that we should be getting for the money. We're carrying a lot of countries. You have 28 countries. At 68 years old, we are not being treated fairly by the world. And I mean that. I've been a politician now for 8 months.
I understand.
I'm going to straighten out the country. We're going to make America great again. Politicians can't do that. I've been a politician for a very short period of time. I announced.
So what are you saying? You've still got a learning curve?
There's always a learning curve. I don't care. Even if you've been doing it all your life, there's a learning curve, especially with something like when you're talking about NATO and you're talking about, because it is a very movable subject. I will say this. NATO is obsolete. NATO doesn't cover terrorism. NATO was based around the Soviet Union. No, but it's important to know.
Okay,
because
fine.
when I talk about
do you know how many NATO soldiers have died in Afghanistan helping us after the 9/11 attack on the U.S.? Do you know how many NATO soldiers have died?
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying it's unfair to us. Fine. I'm saying it, and that's a lot of soldiers. I'm saying it's unfair to us. It's unfair to us.
But they have been defending us against terrorism.
Excuse me. We are paying so much money disproportionately. We have countries that are being carried along. It's not fair to the United States, not fair to the citizens, and not fair to the taxpayers. And what I said was exactly right. Now, when they cover it, they say Donald Trump doesn't like NATO. I think NATO's fine. I think NATO has to be readjusted. I think we have to cover terrorism because we're really not covering terrorism. We're not.
Well, in Afghanistan we are.
Sure, but we have to. Excuse me. Sure, it counts. But I'm saying we have to be very specific on terrorism. NATO is not specific to terrorism. Why are we taking the burden of the cost when big beneficiaries are paying very little? And the reason is because they're ripping off the United States, just like everybody else that does business with us. They're ripping off our country, and that's why we owe $19 trillion.
You talk about the fact that you've only been a politician for 8 months, but there are other issues that you've gotten in trouble on in the last week or so that have more to do with just judgment and temperament. For instance, the fact that you spent days going after Ted Cruz's wife and her looks.
Excuse me.
Wait, let me just ask
Ted Cruz came after me. And
no, he didn't.
Well, he did through my wife.
No, he
didn't. Took a picture.
No, he didn't.
Oh, of course he did. Of course he did.
Do you have any evidence that he knew about the attack by the independent super PAC?
My evidence is total common sense. He knew those people. Those people were 100% for them. They coordinated together. I have no doubt about it in a million years. He did that attack, and this was just retaliation.
Even if he did, was it worth you to spending a week on?
No, I would say probably not. If I had it to do again, I probably wouldn't have sent it. I didn't think it was particularly bad, but I probably wouldn't have sent it. But this was a response. This wasn't me starting something. This was a response.
The Michelle Fields battery case, your campaign manager said he never touched her. You said she made it up. Then one of your surveillance videos, I got to say, you got your places covered.
I have them very well covered.
Showed,
and I was very happy to give. I was very happy to give them that tape.
He showed, in fact, that he did touch her, and then you said this.
I think it's something that's disgraceful. I think that you, as a reporter, and all of you as a reporter, probably get treated a lot rougher than that on a daily basis. I agree with that.
Question: why not just apologize to her?
Because,
I mean, he did grab her.
Because let me tell you why. I'm a loyal person, number one.
I'm not saying you fire him.
Then when she wrote out early on, before she knew she was on tape, that it was that she was practically thrown to the ground. I mean, I wish I had it here. I'd read her statement.
I know what she said.
That didn't happen. Okay?
Do
you agree with that?
I agree with you.
Okay.
But why not just apologize?
Chris. No, but she lied. Do you agree that she lied?
I think she completely misrepresented it early on. I do.
Early on is all that matters.
But why turn one day into 2 weeks?
Chris, well, at least it shows I'm loyal. Because the easiest thing for me to do would have been to destroy that man's life. And I would have fired him immediately. Had she fallen to the ground or almost fallen to the ground like she said, she didn't even change the expression on her face. She kept walking.
So you have no regrets about letting this thing go on for 2 weeks?
Chris, I think, frankly, I don't think she would have accepted. I think she would have used that as ammunition against. A lot of times when you apologize, they use it as ammunition against. The easier thing would have been, Corey, you're fired. You know, I'm very good at that, okay? Okay? But I don't want to ruin. The man has a wife and 4 beautiful children. He lives in New Hampshire. He's a good person. I don't want to destroy him.
You weighed in this week on foreign policy, national security. Here is what you said about Japan and South Korea defending themselves against North Korea. Here it is.
So you have no problem Japan, South Korea having nuclear.
Japan, we can't afford it.
I understand, but that's the question. That's not the question. The question is letting them develop their own nuclear program. For more than half a century, U.S. policy has been that we protect those countries with our nuclear umbrella so they don't develop.
Lose a fortune. And lose a fortune doing it.
I understand, but the idea is not to have a nuclear arms race in the northern Pacific, on the Korean Peninsula.
Are you ready?
You want to throw that all away.
Are you ready? No, I'm not throwing anything away. This is common sense. This is like trade. We lose on every trade deal. Sometimes you're better off saying, hey, wait a minute. We're defending Japan. I mean, what we're doing is costing us a fortune. And not only Japan. South Korea, we have 28,000 soldiers on the line, and part of that defense is nukes, right? At some point, they have to pay us because we cannot continue.
But they do pay us.
They pay us peanuts.
They pay us almost $1 billion. South Korea, I think $2 billion in Japan.
That's peanuts compared to what we're talking about and compared to the real cost.
You want to have a nuclear arms race on the Korean Peninsula?
In many ways, and I say this, in many ways the world is changing. Right now you have Pakistan, and you have North Korea, and you have China, and you have Russia, and you have India, and you have the United States, and many other countries have nukes. It's not like, gee whiz, nobody has them. So North Korea has nukes. Japan has a problem with that. I mean, they have a big problem with it. Maybe they would, in fact, be better off if they defend themselves from North Korea. Maybe we would be better off, including with nukes. Yes, including with nukes.
And South Korea with nukes.
South Korea is right next door. Just so you understand.
But that means
South
you're going to
Korea,
have a nuclear arms race on the Korean Peninsula.
You already have it, Chris. You already have a nuclear arms race. When a guy like Kasich gets up and talks about Trump wants to give everybody missiles, I don't want to give missiles. And by the way, I'd leave it the way it is. Ideally, my number one choice is leave it the way it is, but they have to pay us because we cannot afford to continue to lose the billions and billions of dollars that we're losing in order to defend Japan and Germany and South Korea and Saudi Arabia.
This week, you said you no longer continue to pledge that you will support the Republican nominee for president. Then on Thursday, you had a meeting with the RNC that you said was very nice and they treated you well. So, are you pledging to support the nominee or not?
I will be looking at who the nominee is, and I think people will be very happy with my decision.
Here's the point. In South Carolina, it turns out you took a pledge to support the nominee. If you break that pledge, then you lose all those delegates. So are you going to keep the pledge or not?
What the real point I made in that whole transaction or, talking point that you're talking about was that I released Ted Cruz. He does not have to endorse me if I win. I think I'm going to win, but he doesn't have to endorse me. I don't need his support. I have the support of the people.
But you still need their support if you're going to beat
their support
the
is
Democrat.
Right. Look, I was very popular in South Carolina. I'd like to see a united party, but I also watched the turmoil in his brain when they were talking about Trump and support and, well, I don't know, he's going crazy. All I want to do is relieve the pressure. He's a man does not react well under pressure. I've watched him. He's a basket case. So in order to relieve the pressure, I'm telling you, Ted, don't worry about it. You don't have to endorse me.
Are you ruling out running as an independent third-party candidate? Are you ruling that out?
Look, I'm by far the front runner as a Republican. I want to run as a Republican. I will beat Hillary Clinton.
But if you don't get the nomination?
We're going to have to see how I was treated. I'm going to have to see how I was treated. Very simple.
So you're not ruling it out?
I just want to be treated. It's not a question of win or lose. It's a question of treatment. I want to be treated fair.
After the last 2 weeks, after all of these controversies, any plans to change your campaign? Any plans to lay off the personal attacks? Any plans maybe to study some of these issues more?
Originally, when I went out, we had 17 people. We're down now to 3. I have 2 leftovers, okay? I call them leftovers. They haven't been nice to me. I will beat them. After I beat them, I'm going to be so presidential, you're going to be so bored. You're going to say, this is the most boring human being I've ever interviewed.
It's Trump?
Thank you.